Hey, Kershaw County Police. Can I have a word?
Get in.
What's going on?
The more you cry, the more I'm gonna hurt you.
Make a sound and I'll kill you.
There ain't nobody ever gonna find you.
On earth.
Police announced her parents received a text message sent by their daughter.
As it is in heaven.
What have you done? You think you're special? You were just the bait.
On the 6th of September, 2006, a 14-year-old girl named Elizabeth Schoaf was abducted by a man impersonating a police officer, Vincent Filioff. The harrowing events of Elizabeth's ordeal were subsequently adapted into a film. The film opens with Elizabeth attending a class with her peers. Shortly thereafter, a man enters the classroom and engages in a serious discussion with the teacher, who then instructs one of her female students, Lucy Jennings, to collect her belongings and accompany the man out of the classroom. As they walk home from school, Elizabeth converses with her best friend Amanda about Lucy's earlier encounter. Amanda expresses her confusion, noting that Lucy's mother seems peculiar and mentioning that the police had visited their home a few days prior. Upon returning home, Elizabeth contacts her mother, Madeline, to inform her that she and her younger brother, Bobby, have arrived safely. Later that night, Elizabeth's family enjoys their time together, unaware of a mysterious man digging nearby. The next morning, the family goes about their daily activities, starting with Don, Elizabeth's father, who leaves for a hunting trip with a friend. Subsequently, Madeline sends Elizabeth to the bus stop to catch her school bus, while Bobby heads directly to his school. In her haste, Elizabeth fails to notice that her mascara has fallen from her bag. During their journey, Elizabeth requests her mother's permission to spend Saturday at Amanda's house, which Madeline grants, provided Elizabeth also seeks approval from Amanda's mother. Realizing she has left her mascara behind, Elizabeth asks Madeline to return home, but her mother declines, citing her need to arrive at work on time. Elizabeth and her mother engage in a heated argument, resulting in her mother expressing anger and advising Elizabeth not to return home unless she alters her behavior. Feeling hurt by her mother's remarks, Elizabeth reluctantly agrees with her mother's counsel. During class, Elizabeth's boyfriend, Case, hands her a letter inquiring about their plans for Saturday. After school, Case follows Elizabeth and her friend Amanda as they head home together. Upon disembarking from the school bus, Case produces marijuana, ignites it, and begins to smoke. He offers it to Elizabeth, who declines, while Amanda chooses to partake. Shortly thereafter, Case is picked up by a car, and, fearing his parents will discover the drug, he discreetly places it in Elizabeth's bag, claiming he will retrieve it on Saturday. Before departing, Case offers Elizabeth a ride, which she declines, preferring to walk home as it is nearby. As she nears her house, a bespectacled man suddenly emerges from the yard and calls out to her, asserting that he is a police officer and has apprehended her younger brother. Although hesitant, Elizabeth approaches him. The man swiftly handcuffs her and accuses her of possessing marijuana plants in her backyard. Despite her attempts to clarify their innocence, he threatens her with a bomb strapped around her neck, warning that it will detonate if she attempts to flee or tamper with it. He then forcibly escorts her to meet her younger brother, leaving Elizabeth with no choice but to comply with the police's demands. Meanwhile, at home, Bobby answers a call from Madeline, informing her that Elizabeth has yet to return, which leads their mother to assume that Elizabeth is simply delayed. Shortly thereafter, Madeline contacts Bobby once more to receive an update regarding Elizabeth. Upon learning that her daughter has yet to return home, Madeline instructs her son to search for his sister at the location where her bus dropped her off. Meanwhile, Madeline attempts to reach Amanda to ask about Elizabeth's location. In the woods, Elizabeth repeatedly questions why she is being taken so far away. The man ultimately confesses to having kidnapped her and threatens to shoot her if she attempts to escape. Elizabeth is taken aback and cries out in terror, realizing that the man is not a police officer. After walking a considerable distance, the kidnapper commands her to enter his underground hideout. Inside the bunker, her fear intensifies, and she pleads with the kidnapper not to take her life. As night approaches, Madeline grows increasingly anxious and continues to search for her daughter along the road leading to their home. She encounters Amanda and her mother, who advises her to report the situation to the police without delay. Madeline then contacts the authorities, hoping they will assist her in locating her daughter. An hour later, Don returns home from his hunting trip, Madeline expresses her growing concern, informing Dawn that Elizabeth has not yet come home. However, Dawn attempts to reassure his wife, suggesting that Elizabeth will return shortly. Shortly thereafter, 2 police officers arrive at their residence and begin a search in the woods surrounding Elizabeth's home. Unfortunately, the darkness hinders their ability to find any clues. Following this, they question Madeline about her behavior and the events leading up to Elizabeth's disappearance. Madeline reveals that she had a disagreement with Elizabeth earlier that morning. Consequently, the police speculate that Elizabeth has chosen not to return home due to their prior argument and is likely staying at a friend's house. Nevertheless, Madeline firmly believes that her daughter would not go that far. The law enforcement officials remain skeptical of the claims made by Elizabeth's mother and recommend that she reach out to them if her daughter is not returned home within a few days. Meanwhile, Elizabeth, who is being held captive underground, endures assaults from her abductor. At this moment, she can only weep in terror, unable to resist. The abductor, growing irritated by her cries, threatens to kill her if she attempts to escape, informing her that the hideout is rigged with traps, making escape impossible. Elizabeth learns that her captor's name is Vincent. While watching television, Vincent reassures her that no one is searching for her, as there have been no reports regarding her disappearance. Back at her home, the 2 police officers who previously visited return to speak with Elizabeth's parents again. Madeline continues to assert that her daughter would not simply leave, citing several reasons, including the fact that her valuable belongings remain in her room. She implores the authorities to take immediate action to locate her daughter. The officers subsequently report Elizabeth's case to Sheriff Thompson, who emphasizes that the first 48 hours following a disappearance are critical and criticizes their delayed response. On the 3rd day, as Elizabeth is repeatedly forced to satisfy Vincent's desires, she attempts to quell her fears by reminiscing about her joyful days at school with Case. Shortly thereafter, they hear the voices of Don and his friends searching for Elizabeth, yet they find no indication that she is directly beneath them. Vincent presses his gun against Elizabeth's head, warning her to remain silent. Elizabeth struggles to suppress her tears, reflecting on how close she is to her father at that moment, yet feeling powerless to act. After several days, the media begins to cover Elizabeth's disappearance. Elizabeth experiences a tumultuous mix of sadness and emotion, particularly when her mother articulates her love and well wishes, alongside the hope for her swift return home. As the 4th day unfolds, thoughts of escaping begin to surface in her mind. However, she understands the necessity of caution, aware that her life hangs in the balance. In an effort to gain Vincent's trust, she engages him in conversation, feigning agreement with his statements. It is during this interaction that Elizabeth uncovers Vincent's motives for constructing the hideout and abducting her. He had intended to share this space with his wife, whom he referred to as Peanut. Vincent claims to have been betrayed by Peanut, who accused him of assault and reported him to the authorities, leading to his isolation in this location. Consequently, his plans to reunite with Peanut were thwarted when law enforcement intervened. Ultimately, he seeks to replace Peanut, and Elizabeth's unfortunate timing placed her in his path on the day of her abduction. As the 4th day concludes, while Vincent slumbers, Elizabeth attempts to reach his firearm, hindered by the cuffs around her neck. Shortly thereafter, Vincent awakens, and the sound of helicopters searching for Elizabeth fills the air. To evade detection, Vincent employs aluminum foil to obstruct infrared sensors. Seizing this moment, Elizabeth endeavors to draw closer to him once more, hoping he will be convinced by her act of affection. Gradually, she identifies a vulnerability in Vincent, which she plans to exploit for her escape. Eventually, he falls for her deception and removes the cuffs from her neck, allowing her to approach him further, even permitting her to handle his gun. This firearm resembles no conventional weapon, yet it possesses the capability to inflict harm at close range. Vincent is taken aback by Elizabeth's proficiency and rapid learning in handling the firearm. Later that evening, Vincent restrains her with handcuffs and leads her to retrieve food abandoned in an old vehicle. They proceed to fill jerry cans with water from the river. Suddenly, Vincent hears the sound of a helicopter and swiftly takes Elizabeth back to their concealed location. In their escape, Elizabeth intentionally leaves behind one of her shoes, hoping that anyone searching for her will discover evidence of her presence. It is now the 7th day. While Vincent sleeps, Elizabeth resumes her plans. She attempts to send a message to her mother using Vincent's mobile phone, but the message fails to send due to a lack of signal underground. Elizabeth tries to retrieve the phone from the bunker entrance, and fortunately, the message is successfully transmitted. She quickly deletes the message from Vincent's phone to avoid detection. However, while Vincent remains asleep, Elizabeth attempts to seize his firearm to shoot him. Unfortunately, when she pulls the trigger, no bullets are discharged, heightening her stress as her plans unravel. Meanwhile, Sheriff Thompson informs Elizabeth's parents that the search will soon be discontinued, as it appears she may have left the area. They have scoured nearly 20 square miles over the week without finding any clues. On the 8th day, Madeline is astonished to receive a message from Elizabeth when she checks her phone in the morning. Relieved, she is convinced that Elizabeth is still alive. Dawn advises Madeline to refrain from calling the number immediately and suggests contacting the police first. However, the two officers suspect the message is merely a prank and permit Madeline to make the call. Fortunately, their leader arrives at the opportune moment to prevent Madeline from dialing the number, as it poses a significant risk to Elizabeth. On the 9th day, law enforcement successfully identifies the phone's owner through the telecommunications provider. It is revealed that the phone was registered to a woman named Catherine Heaths approximately 3 weeks prior, prompting the police to head directly to her residence. Upon their arrival, one of the officers recalls having been there previously, having dealt with a sexual harassment case involving Catherine's boyfriend, Vincent Filiov, a year earlier, although they had never encountered the suspect. They begin their interrogation of Catherine, who claims she has not seen her boyfriend in over a year. Shortly thereafter, they uncover an underground chamber both inside and outside Catherine's home, leading them to suspect that their target is a skilled digger, which accounts for their inability to locate him. The police grow wary of Catherine's assertion regarding her lack of contact with Vincent for such an extended period. Thompson clarifies that Elizabeth's mother received a message from a cell phone registered in Catherine's name and questions how Vincent came into possession of a phone that was purchased only 3 weeks ago. He warns Catherine that if Vincent harms Elizabeth and she has misled them, she could be charged as an accomplice to murder. Ultimately, Catherine reveals the location where she delivers food whenever Vincent requests it. Thompson then instructs his team to return to the forested area nearby, as Vincent must be within walking distance to collect the food. Additionally, he plans to utilize the media to publicize Vincent's identity in an effort to draw him out of hiding. This strategy is fraught with risk, but the sheriff is aware that Vincent is a coward who is likely to flee, as he has done in the past. Meanwhile, Vincent begins to feel anxious upon seeing his name in the news, leading him to suspect Elizabeth. Vincent checks his mobile device but finds no messages from it. Elizabeth attempts to persuade Vincent of her love for him, expressing her desire to remain by his side regardless of the circumstances. She warns him that if the police discover them together, he will be incarcerated. Elizabeth insists that he must leave immediately, assuring him that she will follow him wherever he goes. At this moment, Elizabeth realizes that Peanut, whom Vincent mentioned earlier, is actually Lucy Jennings, her classmate from the beginning of the film. Additionally, the woman delivering the food is Catherine, Vincent's girlfriend and Lucy's mother. Vincent has been in love with Catherine's daughter for a long time and has aspirations of marrying her. After revealing his feelings, he ultimately agrees with Elizabeth's perspective. He prepares to depart, leaving her behind with a promise to remain in the bunker. She vows to wait for Vincent to return and marry her when it is safe. On the 10th day, after Vincent's departure, Elizabeth gathers the courage to emerge from the bunker, having been misled into thinking there were numerous hidden traps and explosives outside. She hopes that someone will hear her cries for help. Fortunately, Sheriff Thompson and his team are traversing the nearby woods at that moment. Upon hearing her voice, the sheriff rushes to her aid. She is subsequently taken to the hospital by the police. Shortly thereafter, Dawn, Madeline, and Bobby arrive at the hospital, where they are joyfully reunited with Elizabeth. In the film's conclusion, it is revealed that Vincent Filiov was convicted of multiple offenses and sentenced to 421 years in prison.